Kia ora, hello, I'm Philip Duncan and thank you for joining us for our Tuesday weather update. For April the 4th, high pressure is trying to move into New Zealand, but we've got another cooler change arriving as we go in towards the long weekend. Let's take a look at the animated wind map today showing air pressure. So low air pressure in the darker shading, high air pressure in the brighter. And so a big high pressure zone out in the Tasman Sea. And the next one is rolling in from the Indian Ocean / Southern Ocean. And that's going to drift across the southern portion of Australia over the coming days. So it's a mixture of highs and lows on the weather map, but most of the stormy stuff down to the south and east of the Chatham Islands. There is not a lot of stormy weather up in the tropics, but a little bit of low pressure around Western Australia. That's why you're seeing some rain and showers over there. So let's take a look at the forecast for Wednesday at lunchtime in New Zealand, late morning over in Sydney. So we've got this low pressure zone up here in the sub-tropics. That one could affect New Zealand for the long weekend for some northern areas. So we'll keep a close eye on that. For now, for Wednesday anyway, high pressure right across from the south of Australia all the way to the northeast of New Zealand. And down in the Southern Ocean, stormy low pressure down there. That's going to boost up the westerly winds and some west coast rain as well. Otherwise, it is dry across much of the country. By the time we get to Thursday, in comes that colder southerly. So temperatures drop on Thursday around Southland and Otago, and later on around Canterbury as well, and some parts of the west coast. Most of the wet weather is in the southern and eastern sides of the South Island, and we will see a few snow flurries up in the mountains and ranges, a sign of the cooler air coming in. The North Island not really impacted by it, but a little bit of showery weather up around Northland and maybe Coromandel Peninsula. That subtropical low could be a bit of an annoying feature for the long weekend. It's not a storm, it's just, a lot of people want the weather to be settled for the 4 days. So as we go into the long weekend, here we are on Good Friday. I talked about this yesterday, this high, 1016, not very powerful. So it could shrink a little bit, and if it does that, the low pressure zone up here drifts a little bit further down into the North Island. If the high breathes out, expands, then it pushes that further to the north. So we are seeing a little bit of wet weather brushing Northland, maybe Coromandel Peninsula, and Hawke's Bay, and maybe Gisborne. I say maybe because it's broken up and fractured, and it depends on the placement of that high. So the South Island will be cooler in the morning on Good Friday, but mostly settled. That cooler air moves further up into the eastern side of the North Island. Western areas should stay mostly dry. And over in Australia, it's a northerly flow coming down here around this low pressure zone, so a little bit of wet weather in the mix. By Saturday, that low has moved in a little bit closer than our computer model showed yesterday, and that's exactly what I was talking about. The shape and the placement of this high pressure zone down here makes all the difference. And it might be getting a bit of the squeeze, which is why you're sort of seeing it popping up now south of the Cook Islands. That's quite a big shift. And that allows that low to the north to drift a little bit further down into Northland and Auckland and Coromandel. It's not 100% locked in, so keep an eye on the forecast we've got, because at Rural Weather and Weather Watch, the big IBM supercomputer takes into account this model that we show you here, but also all the other ones from around the world, which are reliable. So that helps work out, as I said yesterday, kind of the answer, what you're looking for. Will it rain? How much rain? That's all available at Rural Weather and weatherwatch.co.nz. The easterly winds will be blowing through, so eastern areas will be cooler, but western areas should be fairly mild as long as it's not cloudy and raining. And over in Australia, if you're heading over there, good luck if you're going to Tasmania. Wintry kind of weather could be coming through for you across Saturday, and windy as well from Adelaide to Melbourne to Hobart. That's a large area with that same airflow blowing through out of the Southern Ocean, and it's going around the next big high that's on its way in. So by Easter Sunday, it's pretty nasty really, the weather across that southeastern corner of Australia. Gale force winds, wintry weather, maybe even a dusting of snow on the mountains of Tasmania and getting up into parts of Victoria, and windy all the way up to about Brisbane, all going around that high, but coming out of the Southern Ocean and around this Tasman Sea low. So the New Zealand area on Easter Sunday, it's a little bit messy, but not really too stormy or problematic. But you might notice the northerly winds starting to kick in a bit on Easter Sunday. That will lift up the temperatures after the temperature drop at the end of this week. And by the time we get to Easter Monday, that low still driving in a windy southerly for parts of Australia, but that big high coming in over Adelaide and will eventually spread in across the eastern side. But New Zealand's going to have to deal with low pressure. So if you're coming back from the holidays on Monday, might be a little bit wet for the north, and in the south, a little bit windy and wet on the west coast, but should be dry in most other places. And in fact, the eastern side of the North Island shouldn't be too wet either, as that wind flow is a nor'wester. So typical Easter weather where it's broken in half. One side of the weekend's not so bad, the other side maybe a little bit unsettled, and a very similar story for Australia as well, although it looks as though your weather starts to settle down by Monday. So that is all from me for today. We're back again tomorrow, Wednesday, as we keep updating you on the Easter weekend forecast. We'll see you then.